Welcome to Mysteries of Superstition Mountain. I'm Larry Hedrick, where we bring the past into the present for our future viewers. Today we have another great story by Hank Sheffer.
One of the things that I really like to do the most is tell stories about things that happened to me or things that I did myself. And this particular story deals with Syphon Draw. Talks about Syphon Draw 35 years ago, give or take a year or two. I had heard so many stories about Syphon Draw and things that occurred around it, and I'd seen maps that really reminded me of Syphon Draw. One of those maps was the Peralta Ruth map, or the Gonzales map. And before you all get hyper, I know this isn't a map of Syphon Draw, but my first impression when I saw it, after the pictures I'd taken of Syphon Draw earlier, reminded me that this is where this was. And I thought, well, I'm going to go up and see for myself. Now, bearing in mind that the Syphon Draw trail starts about 2.5, 3 miles as the crow flies from my 50-50 ranch. So I left there and I drove my truck up to the meanwhile back at the ranch. The owners, Bob and Joy Bishop, I'd known for years, and I figured I'd park my truck there at their ranch because the trail to Syphon Draw was just on the other side of the fence of their property. So I did that, and I went up there, and I walked directly northeast up towards Syphon Draw, and I was following the wash, which you could do at that time. I don't know what it looks like now. I haven't been there in years, but I was walking up the wash and just kind of enjoying the scenery. There were rabbits running all over the place. A lot more then than there are now, and they were jackrabbits, big guys with big ears and jumping around. And they were kind of fun to watch. It was sort of a hazy kind of day, so it wasn't real hot. And I hadn't been thinking real good, I guess, because I was still wearing my riding boots, my Western boots for the walk. But I figured I wasn't going to be that long anyway, so I wore them. But I was walking up the wash and watching the rabbits and just kind of enjoying the day. I had hoped to be with my friend Charlie. I swear, he was supposed to be on this trip, but he was busy with the filming for Larry John Wright at the time, and so he wasn't able to make the trip. Normally, I wouldn't do this kind of thing on my own going into the mountain, but it was only Syphon Draw, so I wasn't terribly concerned about any four-legged critters or anything else. I'm always heeled anyway. I wasn't worried about two-legged critters either, for the same reason. So at any rate, I'm walking up this trail, watching the rabbits, and all of a sudden I hear this buzzing going off. And for those of you who have never heard a rattlesnake buzz in the bushes, it will get your attention, especially if you already know what it is. So familiarize yourself with it if you're going to walk in a mountain. And up in front of me, about 20 feet, 25 feet, was this big old Mojave rattlesnake in the middle of the wash. He wasn't very long, but he was fat in the middle, and I was apparently invading his sacred ground. He was not happy with me at all. For any of you who've ever been out hiking around any Mojave rattlesnakes, they are aggressive. They don't like you. This was really fortunate because I don't like them either. So I found a way to circumvent him, and I walked up on the bank of the wash, and I went by him, and he was still giving me the dickin', but I went on by him up toward the mountain. So as I got up there, I'm walking into the mountain, and I'm just seeing all sorts of wonderful things. Right in the front of the mountain, there are places where some of the tectonic plates, I guess they call them, the slip faults that do this, have created what look like caves. They're really not caves. They're just places between the two slips, and you can walk inside there. And there are places that almost look like drifts that come off of that, like a mine would be. They're not. They're just a hole in the rock. And we have pictures of those, so you can see I'm not blowing smoke at you. So at any rate, I saw those and walked in there and we took some pictures. I took some pictures. And then we came out of that, and there's a place that I'd heard about. In fact, Tom Collenborn told me about it. I walked out there and there's this spire about 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet wide, 2 feet deep, and about chest high to me, and it looked just like a pulpit. And it had been named Jacob Waltz's pulpit. And you could stand behind that thing and look down in the valley. You could see all of Apache Junction. You could see all the way over the San Francisco peaks. That was back when you could see all the way across to the San Francisco peaks without the brown clouds flying in from California. But at any rate, I'm standing up there and I'm looking down, and it was just really neat to see, and it was quiet. So I left from there and I went a little bit further up into the canyon itself, up into the draw. And the further up you got, the steeper it got. And it reminded me of that old story that real estate agents used to tell. If you buy a piece of property, that when you walk it, your nose hits the ground the same time your heel does, go back and get your money because you got taken, because you're walking almost like this. Well, at any rate, I'm walking up there and the rocks are getting bigger. And as I got up right into the draw, there was this place with this great big flat rock. And it really was. It looked like it had been just shaved right off the top. And in the corner was a square piece that was missing. It was about this big, and it looked like it was big enough to maybe set a lantern in or a light of some sort. Well, at any rate, come to find out from legend, this was supposed to be Father Kino's rock. Now, Father Kino, who was over here, it's funny, they talk about Father Kino and Jacob Waltz like they were hard, fast buddies here. That gets a little silly after a while, because Father Kino was here from 1645 to 1711, and Jacob Waltz was here from 1839 to 1891. So they really didn't know each other. But Father Kino was a watchmaker, he was a map maker, and supposedly this is where he could sit up there. I don't know that he ever went there, but that's what the rock was called. It was called Father Kino's rock or seat, whatever you want to call it. At any rate, there was also legend about the hearts. There are the Peralta stone maps, of course, that have a heart in them. We won't even go there, but there are other hearts that are in the mountain, and supposedly Syphon Draw had one. Well, ironically, sitting on that rock off to my right, which would have been north, was this huge rock that was kind of leaning away from me. The edge was toward me, but it was leaning away from me. And lo and behold, as I got a little closer to the front of it, it was actually a heart. And this rock was probably 8 to 10 feet in diameter, and it had some squigglies on it. I don't know if it was actually a real heart with treasure clues on it or what it was, but there was the heart. I was really intrigued with that. As I was watching that, all of a sudden, I was kind of jerked back to reality with this racket going on in the bushes behind me, and I turned around and couldn't see anything. No, it wasn't a ghost. It was a ring-tailed cat that was rooting around in the bushes, and I turned around. I'd never seen one up close and personal, but they're cute little jobby-doos, about yay big, and they have a long bushy tail that looks like a raccoon, and they're ring-tailed cats. They had teeth that really took away from that cute thing. So I didn't mess with him, but we got a picture of him, so that was kind of good. Well, now it was starting to get a little bit darker. I hadn't started this trip until the afternoon anyway. which I don't normally do because that's the hottest part of the day. But at any rate, I started on up the mountain. I wanted to get all the way to the back of Syphon Draw because I've been told that there was a cave affair back there, and I wanted to see if there really was. I'm one of those doubting Thomas kind of guys. If I don't see it myself, I don't believe it. So I'm walking and running over these big rocks now. They're really big rocks. And this isn't the trail that is marked that you can follow today that will take you all the way up to the Flatiron. This is off to the north of that. At any rate, I'm walking, and sure enough, I got to this place where I could see this cut in the rock that was horizontal. It looked like a ledge with an overhang. And I got myself right up in there so I could look in. When you look into these places, you want to make sure there are no critters of any kind in there, like snakes or ring-tailed cats or other things. So I'm looking in there, and it was clear, but I could see where people had actually camped in there. There was a campfire ring. There was some trash, not a lot, but there was some trash there. So somebody had lived in this thing. What was really neat was that on the outside, on that overhang, about 3 feet long, was the etching of a dagger that went all the way across. It was just as clear as it could be, and it looked like it had been etched into the stone, and the smoke coming from the fire had darkened it so you could really see it. No, I haven't been drinking. This is real stuff. This is stuff that I saw. So you can take it for what it's worth. You want to go up and look, you can. At any rate, it was now starting to get darker. And I'm thinking, I'm needing to get down off this mountain. I don't want to be up here in the dark, even though I also know this is full moon or close to it. So it's going to be pretty well lit, but I don't want to be up there in the dark anyway, because I like to see what's under my feet. So at any rate, I'm coming down, and I got back down to Father Kino's rock, and I took a little rest, and I sat down there. And about that time, the moon crested between the two peaks on each side of Syphon Draw. And as it came up there, it created a kaleidoscope of things moving, because the Earth is moving very quickly, like 25,000 miles an hour, if you will. And so the shadows are moving. They're doing all sorts of funny things. And as I sat there with the moon coming up over my right shoulder, I could see, like on the map, there was a place down on the one rock that was flat. And that was supposed to be where there was a cabin on the map. Well, there's no cabin there. It just looks like a dark spot. But following toward that is this guy that looks like he's leading a burro and goes right down into that cabin. And about that time, the moon has moved off. The cabin goes away. The mule and the prospector go away. And now what I have is a full-blown lit Syphon Draw. Well, I left there and I came on down a little bit further because I'm ready to go back to the truck. I'm ready to go home. And off to my left, looking past the abutment of the mountain there's a place where there's also an outline of what looks like a burro and a prospector with a big sombrero hat. And he's walking up the mountain. Now, you don't have to believe me. I have pictures of it, so you can see it for yourself. At any rate, I continued on back down, and I saw no more critters. It was a real safe walk. I got back into the Meanwhile Ranch. Joy Bishop and Bob and I had a cup of coffee together, and then I headed on back to the 50/50 Ranch. Now, whether or not any of these things are real or not, I don't know. I'm just telling you what I saw. But I can tell you, as far as I'm concerned, it's just one more mystery of the Superstition Mountains. Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.